Hello, everyone. My name is Kari Garrison, and I am going to present my proposal for my dissertation. And my topic is factors that increase teacher engagement in blended learning. The purpose of my study is to determine what factors engage teachers in blended learning classrooms. So this study will focus on what motivates teachers to implement blended learning into their classrooms. The major findings of my literature review thus far is that teachers lack training in educational technology. Onall said that the efficient use of technology becomes possible when teachers are trained to use instructional technologies effectively. Anderson and Northcote state that a teacher's knowledge about how to select and use the appropriate technology to enhance learning influences the learner's experience. And Rosen and Beck-Hill say that educators are failing to provide technology-immersed students with the learning environment they are accustomed to and need to be successful. So this lack of training will hopefully give me some insight into why teachers use blended learning in their classrooms or what they need in order to use blended learning in their classrooms. My qualitative research question is, what are the factors that increase teacher engagement in blended learning? The theoretical framework that I'm using is TPACK, Technology Pedagogical Content Knowledge. The Technological Pedagogical Content Knowledge framework provides a theoretical perspective of showing whether a teacher can effectively design and conduct technology-enhanced instruction. There are different components to this framework. The first one is content knowledge. This is the teacher's knowledge about the subject matter to be learned or taught. The second component is pedagogical knowledge. That's the teacher's deep knowledge about the processes and practices or methods of teaching and learning. The third component is pedagogical content knowledge. This is the knowledge of pedagogy that is applicable to the teaching of specific content. The fourth component is technology knowledge. This is just ways of thinking about and working with technology, which can apply to all technology tools and resources. So basically the teacher's knowledge of technology in general. The fifth component is technological content knowledge, and this is an understanding of the manner in which technology and content influence and constrain one another, so how they interact with each other. And the sixth one is technological pedagogical knowledge. This is an understanding of how teaching and learning can change when particular technologies are used in particular ways. This picture shows how technological pedagogical content knowledge works and how all of those components, the pedagogical content knowledge, the technological pedagogical knowledge, the technological content knowledge, technological knowledge, and pedagogical knowledge all interact together to create a framework that shows how technology and pedagogy and content knowledge go together. My conceptual framework or frameworks are synchronous and asynchronous learning. And so that's when students or teachers are dependent and independent in communication with one another. Another concept is linear learning, and that's when information is given in a linear and static manner, meaning the students are receiving the same information from the teacher. Collaborative learning is the third concept, and that's when students work together to accomplish a task that the teacher has given them. And then my fourth one is professional development. I put this on here because I feel like this support for teachers and staff as they apply technology to their evolving practices is an important concept within this study, because without the professional development, teachers are not going to know how to incorporate blended learning. My qualitative research approach is that it's a phenomenological study. And so this research type is appropriate because I will be collecting information on teachers and leaders' experiences and determining common themes within these experiences. My participants in the study will be a group of around 8 people. There'll be some K through 12 teachers who implement blended learning into their classrooms in my district. There will be blended learning coaches, and those coaches help teachers implement blended learning into their classrooms. Then administrators who observe the implementation of blended learning, and also our district level blended learning supervisor. The selection of the data forms that I'm going to use are semi-structured interviews. So that'll be one-on-one interviews that'll be conducted with predetermined questions for around 8 people. A focus group, which would be made up of those who completed the interviews. And then artifacts, which would be district materials that outline the implementation of blended learning in our district, as well as any other district materials aligned with blended learning. The forms of qualitative data that I'm going to use are semi-structured interviews, a focus group, and artifacts. Data analysis. So I'm going to analyze my semi-structured interviews and focus group using Timmy to transcribe the interviews and the discussions among the focus group, as well as the Max QDA for coding those interviews and discussions. And then I will analyze the artifacts using selective coding as themes are further refined throughout my study. The qualitative trustworthiness techniques, there are 4 criteria for this along with strategies. The first criteria, excuse me, is credibility and internal validity. So these strategies, I will use triangulation through the semi-structured interviews, focus group, and artifacts. Peer debriefing, which would be an unbiased colleague's review of their work. Member checks, where participants, they will review and critique their responses to ensure accuracy. The second criteria is transferability and external validity. And that strategy is sufficiently thick description of context, which basically is just a detailed description of the context. The third criteria is dependability and reliability. These strategies involve an audit trail, which are records and documents maintained throughout the study, as well as the peer debriefer. The fourth criteria, confirmability and objectivity. Again, those strategies, the triangulation with the semi-structured interviews, focus group, and artifacts. Again, peer debriefer, the unbiased colleague's review of the work. Search for disconfirming evidence or negative cases, which is mentioned above. And then, of course, a reflexive journal, which would be any kind of notes or documentation that I've made throughout the study. The ethical considerations that I will use, as far as participant consent methods, I will email or make a phone call to ask for voluntary participation. Once I have those participants, they all will fill out and sign a written informed consent. The techniques for protecting the participants in my study, as far as each form of data collection, obviously everything will remain confidential. In the reporting and write-up, participants will remain anonymous through identifying them as participant 1, participant 2, etc. The in-data storage, all the files that I use for my study will be password protected. And then as far as the in-peer debriefing, participants will again, remain anonymous. Thank you for your time. I'm open to any questions you may have about my research. And thanks again.